So, aside from being money, is Bitcoin an investment? This is actually a big question and one which we actually need to answer. So let's look at the investment landscape around the world. The total global equity markets, that is the stock markets around the world, are worth somewhere around $100 trillion. The bond market or the debt market, it's worth about $250 trillion, or about 2.5 times more than the global equity markets. And what about gold? Gold is worth about $10 trillion. So if we take in 2022, 2023, the total value of Bitcoin, it's about $1 trillion. The total value of all cryptocurrencies is about $1.5 trillion. So if Bitcoin only reaches the value of gold, and in my opinion, it's a superior storage of value of gold, but if it only reaches the value of gold, the value of Bitcoin should be about 10 times bigger than its value in 2022 and 2023. So is Bitcoin a security, actually? There's been quite a lot of lawsuits recently about this, and the famous test of whether something is a security is the Howey test. The Howey test suggests that there are 4 questions we need to ask ourselves, and if the answer is yes to these questions, then in fact it's a security, it's a stock rather than money. So the first question is, does it involve an investment? An investment in money or goods? Is there a common enterprise with horizontal or vertical commonality? Is there someone in charge that can, let's say, decide the amount of money that should be produced? Is there an expectation of profit? When you buy Bitcoin, do you expect to make money with it? And does profit depend on the efforts of others? In other words, is the profit that you make on Bitcoin depends on what other people do, for example, the company? Well, in the case of Bitcoin, we have already decided in the law that Bitcoin is not actually a security. It's not a stock. It's not a stock because it's an algorithm and there's no common enterprise behind it and there's no efforts of others that are required. But in the case of XRP or Ethereum and other cryptocurrencies, those questions are not so obvious. And there are now a number of lawsuits. For example, XRP recently won over the SEC a lawsuit which suggests that XRP, which is a currency of Ripple, the company, actually is not a security. Now, the SEC has appealed this, but perhaps they will win and it will be found that it is a security. Now, why is that important? It's important because if it is a security, it cannot be sold through crypto exchanges, and it needs to follow all the rules that the SEC and other regulatory agencies have put on investments. For example, with reporting, for example, with accountability, for example, with the kind of managers that could be used and what managers are allowed or not allowed to do with the stock or with these crypto projects. One big criticism of Bitcoin is that it uses a lot of electricity. And if you recall, the amount of electricity or the amount of power of the proof of work, which means using quite a lot of energy in order to verify transactions, is huge. It's huge for a reason. It's huge for a reason that it provides a sort of a protection against hackers. In other words, in order to hack the Bitcoin network, you need to have at least 51% of all the power used to reach consensus. And that means that only nation states or somebody with huge resources like a nation state can actually attack the Bitcoin network, which might make it unworthy for a nation state to actually devote their entire energy resources in order to break the network. So it is the amount of power that is used that keeps the system secure, and it's a very important thing to understand it. Now, when compared to other energy uses, you could look at the top, we have China and the US, which are the biggest users of energy, followed by Germany, followed by all the data centers around the world. And in fact, Bitcoin energy use is maybe as much as a whole country, like a small country like Norway or Argentina, or even bigger by a factor of 2 compared to Bangladesh, and even more than Switzerland, or a company like Google or Facebook. But nevertheless, the question is it worth to use all this energy in order to mine crypto? And of course, the power consumption is something that is used to keep the currency secure. It's part of the security system. Bitcoin, for example, uses the proof of work algorithm based on the SHA-256 hashing function in order to validate and confirm transactions, as well as to issue new Bitcoins into circulation. And if we compare Bitcoin to other products, for example, if we compare it to the current banking system, you could see that it still uses a lot less than the current banking system. It even uses a lot less, and it's a lot less toxic than gold. Gold uses a lot of energy, and gold also uses a lot of harmful chemicals that come into the environment during the mining process. So Bitcoin, like any other products, require quite a lot of energy, but so do toys, and so do any other products we use in society. So what is the opportunity cost of any other industry? And who should determine whether energy should be used for that industry, like gold or any other industry? In fact, you could even turn it around and say that Bitcoin can be a catalyst for green energy. One of the problems of energy, one of the key problems of energy, is that it's very hard to store it and it's very hard to transport it. So consider countries like El Salvador that have a lot of volcanoes, and volcanoes have endless amount of energy that could be harnessed. But up until recently, all this energy would just simply go to waste because we cannot store and transfer the energy out of volcanoes. But if we can create mining facilities next to these volcanoes, we could immediately use this energy to create and to strengthen the Bitcoin network and allow us to earn money from this energy that is trapped in the ground. The same thing could be said about existing energy sources. For example, gas. When we manufacture gas, a lot of times when we don't use the energy, we simply burn the gas through flares. We let it burn. And it creates pollution, and this energy is used to create nothing. And therefore, some smart people said, well, why don't we use this as this flared energy to mine Bitcoin? And this is one of the new uses to conserve existing energy sources and use them more efficiently. And I've seen a very interesting use of Bitcoin as well. I used to live in Norway. It's a very cold country. In Norway, because it also has very cheap electricity, the reason it has cheap electricity is because it uses water as the main source of energy. They have a lot of water reservoirs, and they use the waterfalls in the water reservoirs to create quite a lot of clean energy. So quite a lot of countries have used containers and moved these containers to facilities to store these containers and to mine Bitcoin in these containers. And these containers created a lot of heat. Well, what if we took that heat and used it to warm the warehouses, for example? I think the workers will be quite satisfied with that. So this idea of dual use, we can mine Bitcoin and at the same time use the energy, for example, to heat your household or to heat the warehouse. The second big criticism of Bitcoin is that it could be used for criminal activities. For example, we found that Hamas and Iran use Bitcoin to raise funds and for other illicit activities. For example, to buy weapons and to sell weapons to places that have been prohibited, for example, Russia. Cyber terrorists and extortionists use it to get paid. They might say, we will give you the data back only if you pay us with Bitcoin. Well, this is actually a problem. This is not the biggest problem. Most criminal activities happen with cash. Why cash and not Bitcoin? Because cash is not traceable. If you recall, Bitcoin stays on the blockchain. It's immutable. It cannot be changed. And therefore, all transactions, even illegal ones, are forever recorded. If somebody is doing an illegal activity, do you think they want to have a written record that can never be erased? It's probably not the best use of Bitcoin as an asset. For example, the addresses of Bitcoin can be traced and over time can be actually linked to a particular entity or person. And this is how, for example, we found out that Hamas and Iran use Bitcoin, because we can trace the Bitcoin addresses to bodies associated with these terrorist organizations.